Welcome to the Hope Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, Kristin Kurtz, and I'm also the founder of New Wings Coaching. I help and empower wild-hearted and adventurous women of faith feeling caged and stuck unlock their true purpose and potential, break free from limitations, and thrive with confidence, courage, and hope. If you're curious to learn more about coaching with me, head to newwingscoaching.net and be sure to explore the show notes for ways to connect with me further. Get ready to dive in as we uncover empowering keys and insights in this episode. So tune in and let's unlock hope together.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for signing up for our event tonight. It's going to be a casual conversation. We're going to go for about an hour. But in the vein of it being a conversation, I want people to feel like they can raise their hand and ask a question or type something in the Q&A. I want to make sure that the chat is open for everyone. That's a setting that I often have to check. Okay, so I think the chat is.
Hi, Donna.
So we have a lot of people signed up for tonight. Many couldn't make it live. Some people are in a completely different time zone. So if you're listening to the recording, thank you for taking the time. So I'm going to introduce Kristin, but I just want to say, we both believe in divine timing, and we've been talking about doing this for months. She interviewed me a few months ago, and then I was like, hey, I need to interview you. And I don't know, I had to reschedule, I think, a couple times. I don't remember the specifics of everything, but it's interesting that we landed on this date unintentionally. This is the 5-year anniversary of me stepping out on the plank with a huge article about health freedom. And the reason why this is so important in the context of this conversation is because I don't know that Kristin and I would have gotten so close, because if I'm not mistaken, well, you can fill in the blanks here, but I think you reached out to me. You'd been on my newsletter.
Yeah, for a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah.
And I published that article, and you sent me some wonderful, heartfelt message. And I think you said, hey, you should listen to this song.
Oh.
And then,
that's surprising.
Yeah, shocker. Because now I know how we both have this really strong musical, we're both really into music, and music really speaks to both of us, and we share songs back and forth now. So anyway, we've become really good friends, and she's my coach now, my life and my business coach. So today's January 7th. 7 is the number of perfection and completion. We had scheduled this, and then I was like, oh gosh, that's the anniversary. That's my 5-year anniversary of publishing my article, and that's how you and I got close. And so anyway, this just all feels perfect. I am Jill McLaughlin. I am a functional medicine certified health coach. I'm in my 19th year of practice. I primarily specialize in autoimmunity and hormone imbalances in women. Well, I say I specialize in thyroid. I do, but because all of our hormones work together, I like to say that I'm a hormone specialist with maybe a little bit of a laser focus on thyroid. I do group classes. I do one-on-one work. And I'm also very active in the health freedom movement. So I want to introduce Kristin. So Kristin Kurtz is a faith-driven life coach and founder and Chief Empowerment Officer, I love that title, of New Wings Coaching. After leaving a successful corporate career to answer a God-led calling, Kristin has dedicated herself to empowering wild-hearted women of faith to break free from fear and doubt, unlocking their true potential. With her unique blend of prophetic insight and practical wisdom, Kristin's coaching is both transformational and deeply rooted in purpose. Join us as we explore her inspiring journey, her passion for helping women soar in their God-given calling, and the profound impact she's making in the lives of her clients. So, welcome, Kristin. Thank you so much for doing this.
It's wild to actually hear that, because, when you're operating in your calling, you just, even your posts that you put out, I was like, wow, you're talking about me? Do you know what I mean? As you're walking out the things that you do, sometimes it's kind of shocking to hear the impact. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes I hear things that other people say about me and I'm like, really? Is that true? Like,
I mean,
so
it's beautiful. So thank you. I
yes,
appreciate that.
you are so welcome. So we're going to go for about an hour.
Mhm.
We don't want to keep people for a long time, but I apologize if I already said this. I think I did, but I may have said it before I hit the record button. You are welcome to use chat, and you are also welcome to use Q&A, or you can raise your hand and I will unmute you and you can speak and ask questions. And in the vein of it being a conversation, we can break up this conversation with questions and
Yeah.
comments. So don't feel like you have to leave everything to the end. So I'll kind of monitor at the same time
Mhm.
that I'm sort of throwing questions at you. But I guess I'll start with, you've overcome a lot, right? You've overcome some big trials, loss, addiction,
Mhm.
feeling caged in a corporate job. So can you just kind of tell us a little bit about your background and how that led to where you are today?
Yeah. So I think the main vein of growing up was a lot of instability, which led to a lot of moving. So I moved a lot between the age of 10 and 14, bouncing from literally California to Vermont and back and forth around the United States. It left me very confused. I didn't grow up in the church. So I just, when people would talk about God, I was like, he's like, there's no way that there's a God. Like, if there's a God, like, I hate him. Right. So by the time I moved here to Minnesota, I was 14 and I was just broken. And you talk about hormones, that age to be uprooted like 10 different times across the country was just, it was wild. I mean, talk about wild. It was literally a wild experience. And I got here and I was just like, somebody give me a drink. I mean, I can joke about that now and it's not really funny, but it truly was. It was like, I need somebody to numb what I'm feeling right now because I don't know what to do with it. So, consequently got into drugs and alcohol, smoking 2 packs a day. I was just a promiscuous girl, designated drunk driver. Like, I mean, I should literally not be standing here right now. Um, but we can look back on our life and see where, especially those of us who were saved, I was saved from addiction when I was 25. I can see literally where his hand was on my life. And by the grace of God, I am still here. Had a huge rock bottom, experience. And when I was 25, a year after we got married, and I mean, I gladly, the first time I went to church, I was like, what is this? This is weird. Like the pastor's speaking to me. And I ended up giving my life to Christ very quickly and full on like deliverance from alcohol, drugs, smoking 2 packs a day. The thing that took me a little while to give up was my trucker mouth. My sister's like, you might want to like tone it down a little bit here. And I'm like, yeah. But subsequently, shortly after getting saved, I had 2 miscarriages. And I honestly thought that my life was going to be like Cinderella after I got saved because I don't know why. I just thought everything's going to be great now. And it's been a long journey, but I was actually even told that I wouldn't be able to have kids, and I did. I had 2 boys who are obviously now 16 and 19, and that actually was one of the first moments that I started questioning the medical establishment, honestly, because I was like, you're telling me I can't do this. And I had a really bad experience with my second miscarriage as well. I won't get into that, but it was a horrible, horrible experience in the clinic, and that actually led me to not work with male doctors anymore. So that's a whole other story on that end. But those were some of the big areas of my life that were really crushing, honestly. But it's produced, I have such an empathetic heart. Like I've just always been one who wants to like deeply know people. I want to like know the in and out of people. And even when I was like, drinking and doing all the crazy things, I would be at music concert festivals carrying around my camcorder, like, I want to hear your story. Tell me your story. And they're like, ah. So I've just always been really interested in people's stories. I think partly because I wanted to just hear like, where is there a common ground like with people? And there usually is some kind of like common vein that brings us all together. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And
Especially
I
when
just
you're
have to,
connected.
what?
Especially when you get like kind of divinely connected to somebody, there's always something. There's always something that is like, oh my gosh, there's a huge connection here.
Yeah. And I just have to say that label of fertility or, you're never going to have children can be so devastating. I've worked with a lot of women over many years who've had that.
Mhm.
I don't even want to call it a diagnosis. It's just a cop out. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no such thing as unexplained infertility. It's just a bunk label that the medical establishment puts on women. But I know so many women who were given that label and went on to have one, two, three, four children. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so I know that you've called your sons your miracle babies or your miracle sons or something like that.
I do. And they are. I mean, they truly are. I look at them every day, especially, I mean, I don't think I should, if I wasn't here, they wouldn't be here, right? Same
Yeah.
thing with like, you're looking at these really challenging parts of your life. I like to help people kind of look back at like, okay, there was this moment that was super challenging, but what was the fruit from it? And had I not left California and had we not moved all those times and ended up here in Minnesota, I wouldn't have met my husband and then had my kids because obviously I couldn't have my two boys without my husband, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
His hand is on everything.
mhm,
Yes. And you've talked a lot about like brave obedience and trusting God and,
yeah,
you know, brave obedience can also mean sometimes doing some scary stuff. That,
hmm
yeah. So talk about what brave obedience means for you and like
yeah,
in work with your clients.
yeah. And I mean, even just today, there was a vein with one of my clients without sharing their story or what have you. It's really giving a yes to something that you may not have the answer to. You don't have the full path. You don't have the full path laid out. I think I look back at my own experience of saying yes to something that didn't make sense. I think a lot of that, to me, it's like the equivalent of saying yes to something that maybe doesn't make sense, or you don't have the full layout or the whole rollout yet. You're saying yes because God's, having you to do something that is going to require being bold and it's going to be requiring being brave. um, I can give an example of, I think one of the most I call it like a crazy faith step. And I actually have this little brave obedience postcard here that I can read from. It's in one of my books. Well, I don't know where I put it, but anyways, um, so do you want to go there, like to the job part already? Because we can. That was probably the biggest brave, obedient step for me I've ever taken in my entire life because I was working in the corporate side of what I call, some of you may not like this, but lately where I was working, I called it hell care. Because it truly was. I was going through hell where I was working from 2020 to 21, especially. And when the Lord said it was time to go, immediately I just had a yes in my like spirit. I had a yes like flowing through my veins. And yet the on paper side, the analytical, like this isn't going to make sense, right? Being the breadwinner, having a good job, great benefits, people stayed at that job till they died because you have great retirement packages and you have all of the things that the world would tell you that you need to live a happy life, right? So I was in that. So kind of like for you, I literally walked off a plank and that's what it felt like. I felt like I was running off a cliff and I had a backpack on my back and I knew that there would be a parachute in there, but I didn't see it.
Yeah.
And the day that I left the job, I had ordered, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Crowning Jewels. I love this. prophetic jewelry. I would buy stuff from them when I had a big transition in my life. And I bought a necklace, just a pendant necklace. Well, it was late. It was late coming in the mail. And you know the date that it came? It came the day that I went to the office to grab my stuff and be done. And I came, and that's when this postcard and this little pendant came. And the postcard said, "Brave obedience." Yeah, right?
My gosh.
Wish I could find it. I could read it. But anyways, it's truly I have such a heart to come alongside women to take those steps. Because I think there's way too many people that are blocking calling and purpose and your destiny because there's people that are going to be around you going, but what if? Oh, but what if? And I'm sure you probably experienced a lot of that
Oh, yeah.
plank walking.
Yes. People were like, don't do this. Don't do
Yeah.
this. You're going to destroy your reputation and your career and your income. And I was like, I have to do this. Like,
Yeah.
there's no other choice but to do this. I will
Mm-hmm.
get sick if I don't do this. So let the chips fall where they may, right? And I mean, I wouldn't change anything, but um, you have referred to your prior life in the corporate world as a cage. And now you help women become uncaged, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that you've said is that your niche is empowering women who feel called to something greater,
Mm-hmm.
but they feel held back by doubt, fear, or feeling caged.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of women who feel that way, and men too, but
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
I think a lot of women are, I think a lot of women feel that way. Like they know that there's a calling on their life, but
Mhm.
maybe they're fearful of stepping out or too comfortable with the
Yeah.
amenities of either,
Yes.
their corporate job, or even women who have possibly been, stay-at-home moms, and they have the comfort of their spouse's income, and they
Right.
know there's, maybe their kids are getting a little bit older and they've got a little bit more space and freedom in their life to do something, but they feel like, oh, well, I'm too old, or, I've been a mom for too long, and who am I to step out as an entrepreneur? Um,
Right.
so I think I think, and, I want you to speak to this, but like,
Mm-hmm.
people who have felt trapped by the income or the security of a job, but also people who, women specifically, who maybe
Yeah.
were stay-at-home moms for a while. And I don't know if you've had any clients like that
Mm-hmm.
who want to do more. They
Yeah.
feel a calling on their life, and the kids are still important, but
Yeah.
you can still fulfill a calling on a part-time basis.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And that was the cry of my heart. Literally, every day I called it the cubicle uh, cage, the cubicle farm. I wasn't like I'm cage free. I knew I was born to be cage free, right? So we have the cage free chickens and we've got the the cage chickens. So I started to move into the I want to be a cage free chicken because chickens don't fly, right? They kind of hang out together. I actually just was recommended a book called Chicken Run, or a movie called Chicken Run. I don't know if you've seen it. It was the cutest thing ever. She said, "You got to watch this movie." Ginger is like, she's the cheerleader. She's like, you guys, there's more outside the coop." And that's like so my heart. I literally would be in tears some days. I would just, I'm like, I know there's more. I know that like I can do this job. Like I can do any job you put me to. Like I I'm wise, I guess you could say, when it comes to fulfilling, the 9 to 5 clock in, clock out life. I'll show up, I'll do more than you need me to. But I knew that there was more beyond the walls, especially, I went through Christian Coach Institute in 2017. And as I started operating in that, not in the full time basis, obviously, because I was working full time, but I started to see the impact that it was having working with the few clients that I was working with, knowing that, yeah, I can do what I call some ninja coaching here in a job. Like I can kind of walk up to somebody and ask some questions and they can get free and, but it wasn't like I knew I could be operating in, right? And I think of a lot of women like myself that, if you're in a corporate job or you're in a job, it's safe, right? If you think of, if you know the Israelites in Egypt, they were slaves. And when they were freed, they were like, we just want to go back. We want our meat. We want the food we were eating before. But they forgot about the fact that they were slaves. They didn't know how to operate in freedom. And you guys, I'll tell you, it took me about a year to come out of that operating system, honestly, because I started working when I was about 14. So about 30 years of working pretty much full time. So to come out of that, it took some adjustment. And even still, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Sunday night and I'm not having anxiety because I knew that there was more. So if you have that cry of your heart, like that's probably the Holy Spirit's like tugging on you. There's something there. I will say that there's a lot of women that I've worked with who, maybe something in their childhood like sideswiped them from a gift that they were operating in, creativity, art, dancing, singing. I don't know. Maybe somebody came across your path and they were like, oh, you suck at singing. Somebody did that to me. It stole my voice when I was about 8, 10 years old. But to have some of those things that you love, to take a moment, just think back to those things that you loved doing. I believe that God is going to start to like resurrect those gifts and the talents and your identity, because so many people, there's like such an identity crisis right now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that I know that you've talked about is working with people who feel like prior failures have disqualified them in moving forward,
Yeah.
which, is kind of similar to if you had something spoken over you as a child, even as a young adult, like having those things spoken over you that have stunted you, or having failed at something in the past, which we all have, right? We've all failed.
Yeah.
I have failed numerous times, but I think, and I know that you help coach women out of, hey, those things don't disqualify you
Yeah.
in
And they
in
don't
your
define you.
what?
They don't define you.
That they don't define you or disqualify you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you like, do you have an example of, because you've been in business for 19 years, like, do you have an example of something that came across your path that almost sideswiped you because of that lie of failure, disqualification?
Not in this career, but
Okay.
in my prior career as an architect. Yes. So, I had words spoken over me as a kid, by a family member. And, I had this very profound experience when I was really young, like 3 or 4 years old, where my mom was in a barbershop quartet. She was a really good singer. And we went over to one of her quartet members' houses to pick up some sheet music. I remember this so vividly. And it was kind of on the outskirts of town. It was this really like beautiful wooded area. And we're driving down this little like gravel driveway. And there is this house. I can still see this house. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I didn't know who Frank Lloyd Wright was at the time, but later in life, I realized it was like a Frank Lloyd Wrightian sort of home. And, we stepped inside the house and my mom could talk to her friend and, they're chatting about, whatever performance they're going to do that next weekend. And I'm just looking around this house going, oh my gosh. Like it wasn't fancy. It was just very unique. And I just got this imprint. Um, and I said to myself at that time, like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to design homes. And I did go to architecture school, but I struggled through school. I was a terrible student and I was a good high school student. I was good in art, I was good in math, I was good in drafting. I even took like a pre-engineering class, and I was, a good student, and I got to college and everything just fell apart.
Mhm.
So I had gotten accepted into the architecture program, and I was excited, but I was terrified. And I know that those negative words that were spoken over me impacted the whole time I was in college. I
Mhm.
struggled. It's amazing that I even graduated. I worked hard, but I just couldn't really get into the flow of it. So
Mhm.
that stunted my architecture career.
Mm.
And I know it was those words that were spoken over me
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
nothing else makes sense. Like it's not like I was
Mhm.
intelligent or bad at math or
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing too, especially when you're getting started, right? When you're just learning something and you're getting started in something and you feel like, at least for me, I'll give an example of coaching for me. When you go through a school or you're going through some kind of training, they're going to give you parameters. They're going to give you a framework. They're probably going to give you some blueprints too, right? Um, and for me, I actually almost didn't do my practicums because I thought, oh my gosh, I can't stay in this box. I'm too uncomfortable. Imagine that. Um, so actually, one of the clients that I've been working with for over 7 years, she was one who actually came to me. I think she came to me, or was it her that came to me? And she said, "I'll be your practicum, one of your practicums." And I thought, okay, yes. And that was kind of okay, I've got somebody's here. But it came to a point, like within that first year, I actually thought that I was failing because I didn't think that I could operate that way. And what's beautiful is the Lord's actually shown me ways to run this business that is different, but still operating, you know, you know what I'm saying? Like it's different. It's very different.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have to be
It is, and
different.
that's why we're
I
having this
am different.
conversation.
Like I have to remain. I tell like my clients, I'm like, it has to be different. It has to be different.
Yes. And I was talking to
Sometimes
you,
you feel
I
like
think
a failure if you're different, right?
I was talking to you in our last coaching call about how, like I hate AI and I hate the idea of AI, but I see all these people using it and, like, oh, it could really save time. And you were like, nope, stay different.
Yeah.
Nope,
You,
stay different. I was like, okay, she's
yeah.
giving me permission to stay different.
You stay in the lane. I kept hearing that today. Like, just keep staying in your lane. It's the best lane to stay in, right?
Yeah.
And it's gonna be the free way. It's like it's free. There's so much freedom in that.
And one of the other things that you and I have talked about is not getting distracted by other voices and like the shoulding
Mhm.
on ourselves. Like, well, this person's doing it this way. Maybe I should do it that way. Or, oh, this person has this blueprint. Maybe I should do it that way.
Yeah.
And you've talked about not getting distracted by those voices and doing it your own way. And one of the things that you and I have also talked about, and one of the things that I think we really have in common is authenticity.
Yeah.
Like, we came into this conversation with the agreement that it's going to be real and raw. I don't have any pre-scripted questions.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't feel like there's enough authenticity in the world right now. I think a lot of people are trying to parrot other people and do things the way that other people do them. And that is just not me. And if I don't have a huge following, then I don't have a huge following. And I know you feel the same way. It's like we
Totally.
have dedicated readers and listeners, and that's
Mhm.
all that matters. Like, I'm actually happy when people unsubscribe from my newsletter because I'm like,
Yeah.
I wasn't for them. Great. Now I'm not going to clutter their inbox anymore.
Right. I say I'm not for everybody and everybody's not for me.
That's
And it's
right.
true. Like I can't appease everybody. And it's okay. I think that's a big part of, being in business, just even the collaboration piece too, being able to refer people to other people. That's another part. I was actually told by a friend of mine who is a counselor. She's like, Kristin, thank you so much for sending somebody to me rather than taking on somebody who needed more of like a counselor, um, you know, I guess you could say, environment. I'm trying to use the words here. Because a lot of times, the coach industry can be, I don't want to say it's just interesting. So, but being able to refer people out. So I'll have people come to me maybe for a discovery call and like, you might need a little bit more inner healing. I've got somebody, like, I've got a counselor, I have a health coach. Like, yes, I am trained as a holistic health coach, but that's not my main thing. Like, my main thing is doing what I'm doing, and I can't help everybody. So, and I'm sure you're the same way too, where like, yep, okay, well, you're not a woman who has hormone problems or whatever. You're a man who, and I'm just giving an example that needs something that's not something that you, focus on. Being able to refer them out to somebody else and be okay with that,
Yeah, I refer people out all the time. I mean, it doesn't behoove us to work with people that aren't
Yeah.
that we don't really feel like we can help move the needle for, right? Like I refer people out frequently.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
and that speaks to discernment, right? Which is actually a word I've been using a lot lately. I've actually been talking with my daughter about discernment. She's only 11, but
Yeah.
she really has incredible discernment. And my pastor was talking about discernment. You and I have talked about discernment.
Yeah.
I've been talking with my daughter about discernment with this particular situation she has going on at school. And, that ability to know if you're the right coach for somebody or know whether or not you can truly help them is discernment, because there's a lot of coaches out there who will say, "Oh yeah, I can help you," and then they're not the right fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've had a lot of clients come to me who've had bad experiences with working with coaches who clearly they weren't the right fit, but the coach was just so eager
Yeah.
for the business that
Yeah.
they took this person on. And I think that's out of integrity. I think
Yeah.
it's not how we operate.
No. No. And that keeps us different.
That
It's
keeps
one of the elements. I think one of the things too, if I could just share, the Lord actually had me to do just a very short podcast episode last year about the difference between like counseling and life coaching. It's a very simple quote unquote formula. There's like a line of demarcation. So basically, counseling is more dealing with your past, right? If you're really kind of stuck in the past, you might need more of a counselor. I would suggest, I have counselors I could suggest you to. You've got a line in the sand, and then you're like, you're at the starting line. You're like, I am ready to like tackle my future. I know I've got more. I've got this. I'm ready to run. Like, my past is there, and we're all going to have, times our past is going to try to like pull us back a little bit, right? I mean, nobody's immune. I have it myself at times, but you are like in forward motion. That's where I like to say you're ready to move forward in purpose. You're not moving backward, right? So I just wanted to put that out there because I realize that some people don't know what a life coach is. And when you're operating in it, you think everybody knows what it is. And when I first started working with a life coach, probably, I think it was about 10 years ago, it was one of the most incredible experiences because I think we all need somebody. We need people in our corner. And one of the visuals that, I've been given and kind of a confirmation even today on one of the calls I was on with a client was I'm in the corner in a boxing ring and you're like out there in the fight. You get out there and get in the fight and you're going to get beat up. And if you don't have somebody that's in your corner, and I call it the but what if person, there's the but what if people all over the place. They're like, but what if, but what if, but what if? And you're like, I guess this isn't going to work out. Might as well just give up. Then you've got another, oh, but what if? Oh, yeah, I know. Like, you need somebody who's in your corner that's like, what's your but God said? What's your yes? What's the brave, obedient next thing that you need to do? And I will kick your booty in a nice, kind way.
Yeah, you kicked my
Here's some
boot.
water. Here's some water and some food. You're getting back out there. You've got, I like to say, places to go and people to free.
Oh,
Like, that's my, like, one of my like phrases over myself. Like, get up, girl. I have to do it to myself too. I'm not immune from this. There's a lot of resistance that goes into operating in this purpose, destiny calling, right? Wouldn't you say on your end too?
yes. And I love what you just said, places to go and people to
I
free.
know
You
that's,
and I have talked about freeing people,
yeah.
like I know that you free people. And, one of the things I want to also talk about is like how you, not the details of it, but just conceptually, how you foster this transformation, both professionally as well as spiritually in your clients.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here to free people. And some people are going to get offended. It's okay. I know that I've offended a lot of people
Yeah.
with my unapologetic stance on
Yes.
things. But that's okay, Um,
I've offended a lot of people too. I mean, I've been kicked off social media. I've been, we both have, we can't control what others feel or think, right? But we
yeah,
can control if we're going to step into what God's calling us to do.
yeah, absolutely. And there's
And
a protection in that, even though it can be, a little bit scary at times, or
Mhm.
maybe we second guess ourselves. If we know that we are walking that path that God has put us on, there is a protection there, right? There is a covering, like we're covered. Not
Yeah,
that bad things necessarily aren't going to happen, or we get this nasty email or whatever, like that stuff's going to happen.
right.
But
Yeah. It becomes less, how they talk about like water off a duck's back. I used to think that phrase, back when I was dealing with I mean, I still have a lot of circumstances, right? It's not like my life is perfect, right? But as these circumstances come at me, it's like that water off a duck's back. It takes less time to, like, I need to lay down for a while. Let me just lay down and I'm going to get back. Like, I get back up quicker than I ever used to. But that's come with a lot of resistance training, right? You get stronger in the gym when you're lifting weights and you are sore the next day when you're using new muscles. So um, I feel like sometimes I get to be like a personal trainer in a way and a chiropractor, like, okay, let's get you back into alignment. let's Come on. I used that today with a client. I was like, let's get you on the table. We're going to get you back into alignment. So it's like a spiritual chiropractor in a way,
and you've also talked about, and I've witnessed this as one of your clients, is just this incredible intuition that you work with. I'm also highly intuitive. I think that's one of the reasons why you and I,
Mhm.
have become so close so quick, is because
Mhm.
we have a lot in common, but like we're both highly, highly intuitive. And sometimes in my coaching sessions with clients,
Mhm.
I hear things coming out of my mouth. I'm just like, well, where did that come from?
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
pre-scripted.
Yeah.
And you've also talked about, and I operate this way too. It's like when I go into a session with a client, I mean, I'll write at the top of the page before we get on the call, like the things that I want to make sure that we cover. But
Yeah.
it's not a script. It's just little bullet points of, okay, I know, she emailed me about this and I want to check in with her on that. And I got to circle back to something we talked about in our last session. So I just got these bullet points, but I don't have a script, and I don't have like like a hard and fast roadmap. And a lot of the transformation that happens for my clients comes through my intuition. I mean, yes, I'm very science based, right? And all that stuff. And people are like, oh, how do you know
Mhm.
all the science? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. I just read it and it sticks. But you can't just throw science at people
Mhm.
and expect transformation. Like you have to ask the questions, you have to
Yeah.
probe, you have to use your intuition to really pull
Mhm.
out of them like what's really going on. And
Mhm.
uh so yeah, you can talk about how
Yeah.
you use intuition in your practice also.
Yeah. So I've like I've kind of termed it like a prophetic advisor, I guess, because like you said, it's those questions that come that I don't pre-question. I don't, like I said today to one of my clients, I was like, all right, you ready for the adventure today? Because one of my clients, they have an option to send in like a pre-coaching form, but on this particular one, she didn't send in one. And so you ready for the adventure? Because I don't know what's going to happen. And we get to the end and we're like, it's like, it's wild. That's why I say, kind of for the wild ones, I guess, who are open to going on a free spirit, like prophetic advisor, spiritual midwife adventure, because it truly is mind blowing what happens. I'm like, this is Holy Spirit working through me. It's like a three-way call. It's incredible.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think one of the ways that that's fostered, I think for both of us, I don't want to, put my
Yeah. Yeah, you can
suppositions
share.
on you, but
Yeah. No, this is your time too.
well, when you are a deep listener,
Yeah.
which I know you are because I've worked with you and I do deep listening in my coaching calls.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that allows me to be a deep listener is that I don't have a script
Right.
necessarily. I've got these bullet points of things I want to make sure we cover,
Right.
but because I don't have a script, I'm not thinking about like, oh, well, I got to get to my next question.
Mhm.
Or, it's like,
Yeah.
so I think that allows the intuition to come in and when you're listening deeply and you're using your intuition, and like you said, it is a three-way call. It ends up being a three-way call. And I've had
Yeah.
many experiences where I've gotten to the end of a coaching call and I'm just like blown away. Like I'll go into a coaching call being like, well, I'm not really sure what we're going to talk about because this client hasn't really
Yeah.
done a whole lot since our last, it's like, what are we going to talk about today? And those end up being the most mind-blowing
Yeah.
transformative calls.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. It is. And it's such a gift. It's such an honor, to be able to do this work with people, because that you're helping people to like realign and recalibrate their life, their health, like on so many different levels. We do different things, but we're operating in a similar vein. We're just focusing on, you know, you're doing more of the physical body, but you're also doing spiritual. And I know it's more than what meets the eye, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always say to my clients, I'm not a life coach and I'm not a
Yeah.
therapist, but they end up
Right.
telling me a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
It's good information for me, because we know that like childhood trauma can affect the immune system. We know that, childhood trauma or even young adulthood trauma can
Yeah.
impact hormones, it's like, so it's important for me to know, but I always go into it with the caveat that, I'm not a life coach or a therapist, but I am a good listener.
Yeah. We,
Um,
we,
but
we have to be good listeners.
yeah, we have to be. And one of
And
the things that you have also said is that we get transformed along the way in these
yes.
relationships.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of coaches, a lot of health coaches who do not do one-on-one work anymore, which I think is
Yeah.
sad.
Wow.
I have been transformed through my one-on-one work with my clients, like that deep, either a 6 or a
Yeah.
12 program where you really get to know somebody, you really get to witness their journey, and
Mm-hmm.
things will get thrown at me that I don't know the answer to, right?
Yeah.
And I go research it.
Right.
So a lot of people say, well, I don't want to. A lot of people will say things like, how come my doctor never told me this? Or how come you know
Mm-hmm.
this, but my doctor didn't know? And I'm like, well, I'm sure your doctor has very good intentions, but they are incredibly busy. If they're in an HMO or a PPO, they've got 7 minutes per patient. They're just moving people through like cattle.
Yeah.
And I have the luxury of being able to go research stuff.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
have that time luxury to do that. And yeah, it's um I have been transformed because of these relationships.
Yeah. Would you say, and even in calls, I kind of touted it one time, I think it was a few years ago. I was talking to yeah, that's what I remember now. I was talking to a friend of mine. We were kind of doing some like trade coaching calls because she's also a coach. And I said to her, "You are a voice activator." And it was like it got thrown out like a boomerang and it hit her and it swung around and it hit me. And I was like, it took me a moment, like, whoa, that's for me too. I said that. I was like, this isn't just for you. Like it's for me to grab onto as well. Have you had a lot
Yeah,
of moments like that?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Like
Absolutely.
amazing. So fun. I just
So
love to say that. It's just so fun. Like it's so fun to do this.
yeah, it is. Sometimes I'm like, wow, it's like I
Mhm.
get paid to do this incredible work. It is a lot of fun. It's really fulfilling. So
Mhm.
really in my sort of little bullet pointed list of things that I just wanted to make sure that we hit on, one of the other things that you have talked about that really resonated for me, and I'm sure a lot of your other clients, is not laboring alone. And I think you talked a little bit about it earlier in this conversation where, I don't remember your exact words, but not
Yeah.
working in isolation, not working alone, but you've talked about the spiritual womb and pushing with a purpose.
Yeah. And pregnant with purpose too. Hmm.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people are pregnant with purpose
They
and they're
are.
not sure how to push.
Yeah. They so what I did a Facebook Live recently in this vein because he was showing me this pregnant with purpose thing, right? And then he started showing me that there's three trimesters. So there's the discovery trimester, the development trimester, and the delivery trimester. And there's too many who are aborting their purpose, like self aborting their purpose. And I want none of that. I'm like, let's get you on the table and let's do your ultrasound. Let's let's see what's in there because it's gonna start kicking soon. It's got to get out there.
And when you're pregnant with purpose for a really long time, it gets really uncomfortable.
Yeah, when you're overdue, and I use the term it's due time a lot. It's due time for you to get this out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would ask you guys who's listening, like, what are you pregnant with purpose? Like, what's there that needs to be delivered into the world?
Yeah.
You need to just push and breathe.
And one of the reasons that you and I started working together, other than, God telling me, like, this is your chick, like, this is who you, I mean, it was just like, oh, this is a no brainer. And I want to qualify that also by saying, after 19 years, I've worked with a number of, coaches, business coaches, life coaches, not like consistently through that whole time, but I've had periods of working with different people. Um, I'm not going to say they were bad experiences, but they weren't like, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say any of them were transformative. I wouldn't say I got nothing out of it.
Yeah.
But it just became very, very clear that I needed to work with you. And I lost my train of thought. There was a point that I was going to make about, you just said something that made me think of something that we talked
Oh, the
about.
pushing and breathing,
The what?
the pushing and the breathing. It was
Uh,
the
oh, I know what I was going to say. In one of our sessions, I was like, I've this may have been our first session, actually. I was like, I've got all these ideas,
mm,
I don't know how to sequence them appropriately. And I end up kind of spinning my wheels because I'm like, well, I could do this and I could do that. And oh, this is a great idea.
yeah.
Should I do this first before this? Or like, I didn't know how to
Mhm.
sort out. I was pregnant with too many ideas, which is also a very uncomfortable place to be. And
Pregnant with multiples.
yeah, I'm pregnant with multiples. You are exactly right.
Mhm.
And I actually meant to say at the beginning of this conversation that we are also both like word nerds and
Yeah.
wordsmiths, and some of the ways that you like pull root words out of words or highlight certain parts of words just absolutely blows my mind. It's like incredible. It is such a gift. It's such an art. But you helped me hone in on like, okay, well, um I mean, I won't get into the details of it, right? But like you helped me sort out my thoughts and prioritize what was most important. So I think a lot of people are, you know, um, pregnant with purpose,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of people who are pregnant with multiple ideas, and it
Yeah.
can cause paralysis.
Yeah.
I've known people who are like, "Oh, I've got all these ideas, and I just end up doing nothing because I'm not sure how to prioritize it."
Yeah.
And you helped me move through that.
Yeah. It's a gift. It was a gift to help you with that. I've noticed a lot of the women that I work with, I would say are what I call multi-passionate as well. So there might be different facets that they're working on. They might have two different branches of businesses. They might have a podcast going, writing books, like all these different things going on that go into the umbrella, like under the umbrella. But there's things that need to be put on a bookshelf for a little while. Like, what do you need to pull off the shelf to read now, quote unquote?
Yeah.
What's for later? What's we can't read an entire bookshelf at the same time, right? So there's a time and a place for what God's calling you to, and I think part of that adventure that I get to go on with women is to help them. Like, what's the trail we're going to go on? Like, we're going to focus on this trail at least for the next couple weeks, and then if we need to adjust, we'll come back to the trailhead, and we'll see what we need to work on next. But I'm just so it just grieves my heart when I hear of women who've, like I said, self-aborted or um, have allowed the world to stop them.
Yeah.
I will tell you, a lot of times it's
Um,
the people closest to you.
yeah. I mean, that was my experience before I published my big anti-mandate bomb. Was I had people around me, including family members, like, don't do this, you're going to put all this negative attention on your family, and your daughter's young, you got to be careful, like blah. And I'm like, I'm doing this because I have a young daughter. Like, don't you understand? Like, I just had a completely different mind frame. But
Mhm.
the reason I keep looking to the side is because I actually pulled out some of the notes from some of our coaching sessions, and I just
Yeah,
highlighted a couple things.
sure.
One of the things that you have also talked about is like pulling back, you
Mm.
know, and releasing the target,
Mhm.
like being really mindful in you know pulling back and releasing the target versus being kind of like all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
hone in on your target.
Yeah.
So that has been super helpful for me. And then you've also talked about um standing in authority and
Mhm.
like coming to the end of yourself. Like, I'm at the end of myself and I'm going to stand in authority for what God wants me to do from this point forward.
Mhm. Yeah.
Ooh, like,
Did that impact you?
what
How did that impact you?
did you say? How did it impact
How
me?
did that impact you to start
You're
leaning
breaking
into
up
that?
just a little bit.
Yeah. Could you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Um, well, I like what you said about coming to the end of myself, because at the time that we were having that session, I was coming into agreement with myself in coming to the end of myself around this, like, not being able to prioritize. It's like, okay, I'm done with that. Like, I'm coming to the end of the self that is um a little bit disorganized right now, and I've got all these people around me who are like, how do you do everything you do? And I just want to laugh because I'm like, I've actually been a little bit disorganized this last year. And so you helped me just come to the decision of, okay, I'm done with that. I'm done with
Mhm.
that, and I'm going to stand in authority, and I'm going to launch this program in 2025. I'm still going to have these other things that are part of my business, right? But, this is where I'm putting my focus.
Yeah.
And
That was your bullseye.
what?
That was your bullseye.
Yeah, my bullseye. And you said, yeah. You talked about kicking the enemy in the face, and
Yeah.
I was saying how, there's this program that I took from this really, respected doctor, and I hadn't logged into the program for a while, and I was like, there's some modules that I needed to finish, and you were like, yep, you're going to log in today and you're going to say, I'm coming for you. And I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I'm like, I logged in. I actually had trouble logging in, which was weird. I'm like, I know I've got the right password. So I got
Mm-mm.
resistance logging in. And I
Of
was like,
course you
what is going on here? I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. And I got logged in.
Love it.
So
Yeah.
it had been so long since I had logged in. I actually had to like re-listen to a couple of modules, which is fine. I got a lot out of it. So anyway,
For now, right? So what is this program that you're going to be doing?
so it's called Mastery, but I like to call it Mastery because I work with people who have autoimmune conditions, and I've been primarily focused on Hashimoto's and alopecia for the last, well, alopecia for the last 11 years, but Hashimoto's going back to 2008.
Mhm.
But there's this phenomenon called MOS, which is multiple autoimmune syndrome. Most people have more than one autoimmune condition. And the medical literature says once you have one manifestation of autoimmunity, the likelihoods of acquiring other types, two, three, four types of autoimmunity is greater than 50%. So it's been rare that I've had a client who's only been diagnosed with one autoimmune condition. It's like Hashimoto's and psoriasis, or alopecia and scleroderma, or there's all these and by the way, I also have da 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 da. So um I got a download from God last spring. I mean, I was like having a really crappy day. Actually, I was tired. I was frustrated with myself. I was like, I think it was like the end of winter, and here in Minnesota, it's like February and early March just gets really
Yeah.
tough. And I was like
Mhm.
just feeling like kind of blah. And I got this download to do this mastery program. So Mastery.
Mhm.
So um I wasn't ready to launch at that time, and I was going to launch in the fall.
Mhm.
Um And then I decided not to launch in the fall for very good reasons. I mean, largely because of the election. I'm really involved in the health freedom movement. And I just thought, no matter what somebody's politics are, like this fall is going to be
Yeah.
a little bit tumultuous, right? So I made an intentional decision to put it off until 2025.
Mhm.
So, but that course that I've been taking from that doctor is playing into this. Like there's pieces of it that I'm pulling in. So it's not like I could just launch it. It's like I want to be really intentional about this. And actually, I have a book sitting right here. I didn't really. So I also am pulling in a lot from this book. Are you familiar with this guy?
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's called Exposing the Spiritual Roots of Autoimmune Diseases. Oh my gosh, I read this book cover to cover. I mean, I've got like highlights on every page.
I
So
can only imagine. I
I'm
can only imagine how
totally-
much you're going to be bringing in to the program.
I am bringing in a spiritual perspective. This book blew my mind.
Mhm.
So there, it's not just like, oh, I'm just going to take all the knowledge I have and like launch this course. I'm it's going to be completely different than anything I've done before. So it's going to take a little bit more groundwork and laying a good foundation for it. But
Mhm.
you have a program coming up, or you have a group coming up or something, right?
Yeah. And what you're saying with the health coaching um, piece, where a lot of times they're not going one on one with people anymore. That's my first love. Like one-on-one coaching is my first love. It
Yeah.
really is. I
Yeah.
love going deep, but within the last couple years, I just felt like the Lord was calling me to do some group coaching. I did 2 last year, and then um, this year I did one called Yesters, which is, play on words there with yes, saying yes, and Esther, so Yester.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
brilliant.
I mean,
Brilliant.
it's Holy Spirit. Like we have fun wordsmithing. Like you are prolific. You guys, if you can get a chance to get on Jill's newsletter, she's like prolific writer. Just you can
Thank you.
tell there's so much intentionality behind everything she says. I mean, as you can
Thank you.
probably tell right now, even too. But yeah, so I've enjoyed having a group, partly because I'm a big connector as well. I guess one of my gifts is connecting people, and I've seen beautiful things happen when, like, I'm called to what I would say set a table and bring people together. And I've seen people like pair up and go do things together, and that's been really
Yeah.
fun. So I see this beautiful combination of the coaching and the connection. So I'm going to be starting. It's a really big mouthful that he gave me. It's like, really? Okay. So it's Come Alive in 25. So that's I was like, yeah, I love it. But it's aligned for impact by design. So it's Come Alive in 25, aligned for impact by design.
Yeah,
And
I love
I really felt like he was showing me that a lot of women, we talk about the purpose here, pregnant with purpose, identity, destiny, like there's assignment. I think there's going back to the identity, problems in the world. And not that we on here maybe are dealing with some of that ourselves in massive ways, but when you get full on clear with like your destiny and your calling and your purpose, and you know what your assignment is for the season, like I'm living in that right now. And there's so much like peace and joy, and it's so hard to explain like the inner like excitement that I have every day, that I want people to have that. Partly because I feel like it's going to set us up for what we're coming into in this world. We need to be fit for the call, in essence. We need to be ready. We all have a purpose. We were born for a reason. And if you are just flailing around, like back when I was a kid growing up in California, we would go see the elephant whales. You are not an elephant whale. You're not meant to just lay on the beach. I'm sorry. I would love to. I love the beach. I love the sun. But we have a mission that we need to live out.
yeah.
So that's going to be the first group coaching for the year. And then it's going to roll into something that's going to get a little more like, come on, it's going to set you up for the next.
And
So.
in my follow-up email that includes the recording of this, I'll put a link to your website, and I'm assuming like you can sign up for the group through
Yeah,
there.
I have a wait list. I'm only allowing 12 women on. I'm actually doing a very short application because it's not for everybody.
Okay.
Again, like I said, I'm not for everybody, and everybody's not for me.
Full?
Is it full?
Yeah.
I have well, I'm using a wait list, just my form. I'm calling it a wait list.
So
There's
people
12,
have to apply.
but I do have some room. Yeah, there's room for 9 more ladies in the group. So
Okay.
I'm capping it out at 12. I just don't like to do too many people in a group.
Yeah, I hear you.
I mean, if I had a group, I would have 1 or 2. Just totally kidding. But I mean, like I said, I just love the one-on-one space. I just know that there's so much that can happen in a group. Like you can bounce off of each other, and
Yeah.
there's
And I do both also. I didn't do a group in 2024,
Mhm.
but I've done lots of group stuff in years prior. But I would also say,
Mhm.
in addition to my mastery program, which is
Yeah.
obviously more health related, I'm launching a mentorship in a week for health coaches. I don't know how many people, a bunch of people from my community signed up for this, and a bunch of people from your community signed up for this. My community, if they're reading my newsletters, they already know about it, but I've never been super called to like have a program for health coaches, but I've had so many coaches reach out over the last
Mhm.
really a couple years, 2 or 3 years, asking me like, how has your practice changed since you stepped out on the plank? Have you had any negative repercussions from it? And I've been pretty open about how actually it's been a boon to my business. It's been a huge boon to my business, like
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Alignment. So, long story short, about a year and a half ago, I had several coaches kind of reaching out to me sort of in succession. And some of them I'm friends with, they're friends of mine who are also coaches, and they're just asking me a lot of questions. And I'm like, I'm just gonna slap together these calls. Like I'm just gonna do this like down and dirty mentorship. I launched it in like a week, and I'm like, okay, whoever wants, I'm gonna start this next week. It went on for 8 weeks, so this mentorship's only gonna be for 6 weeks, but it was incredible. Oh my gosh, we
Part of
had
it.
what?
It was part of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you were. Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, I had a load of fun and a lot of people got a lot out of it. So I'm like, I'm still getting a lot of these questions. So I launched, it starts on Monday. I'm just calling it the Health Coaching Practitioner Mentorship. It's 6 weeks, and it also includes a module on how to publish a book. That's going to be a very meaty conversation. That's probably going to be a good hour and a half presentation because I have a lot of people in my community who are interested in publishing a book. Somebody just reached out to me today, asking me how to,
Yeah.
the ins and outs of self-publishing and, the different types of editing and all that stuff. So I'm going to get into detail about all that. But the first 5 modules are going to be, I'm not going to be telling people what to do. Like, oh, you got to do this and you got to do that. Like, there's not going to be a wireframe. It's going to be conversational, like we're doing right now. And I'm just going to share with people how I've kept the wheels under things
Yeah.
these last few years, because my practice has changed. How I coach people has changed. I've introduced a couple of new things into my business. I'm just going to put all the cards on the table and say, this is what I'm doing. And I have a very, I don't want to sound, I have a lucrative practice. I don't want to sound, arrogant in any way. I don't mean it that way, but there's a
You're
lot of
never
coaches.
arrogant.
What?
You're never arrogant.
Thank you. There's so many coaches who are throwing in the towel,
Yeah.
and they need you. They need you.
I'm here. I mean, I don't want people throwing in the towel. It's the last, like I said earlier, it grieves my heart, right? Same with you. And like the generosity, when I was in your group last time, to even though I'm not fully operating in the health coach realm, there's things that cross over, and I'm
Yeah.
still giving resources to people in the health realm. I mean,
There's
I'll share with you guys, like I was kind of like, I'm going rogue tonight. So this like is really nasty. Like this is a nasty thing on my nose. I'm supernaturally treating a skin cancer thing on my nose. And now I'm walking. So it seems like, and I'm sure you've walked through this too, like the alopecia and the Hashimoto's. Like I've been through Hashimoto's and other things in my life. And then I go kind of do the natural route, kind of up against the system, opposite. I go find these keys and resources and people, and then I get to collect them, right? But I have to walk through it first.
Yeah.
So I'm walking through this right now first. And I was like, Jill, I'm going to be on here looking pretty cute tonight. And I've been wearing a bandage up until today. But like I said, I'm doing this rogue thing that this guy got extradited out of the US. I'm not going to go into it because all the things. But we go first. And then we get to share resources with people. And I love how you so freely shared. Like you said, you just laid your cards out on the table last year for everybody. Was it last year or was it the year before? It seems like
we started in September of 2023. So it was like a year and a half.
Okay. Yeah, but you're just so generous to share, your
Well, thank you.
everything.
There's people signed up for this year who they're not health coaches, but they have some kind of like coaching practice or consultation, consulting business. So there's a lot of people who want to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people who have a book in them. So, I want to make that part of this. So Well,
Mm.
I have so appreciated you coming and just laying all your cards on the table. And I will just say to anyone who needs a coach, a life, business, spiritual midwife,
Mm.
I can't recommend Kristin
Mm.
highly enough. Really. Like, I don't see myself working with another coach, honestly.
Mm.
So,
That's a
high,
wonderful.
high, high recommendation. And I'll say one other thing, which is it might feel weird to say this or, you know, kind of it might feel weird to say this, but Kristin and I don't have any kind of financial link to one another. Like I've seen some relationships between colleagues go bad based on like referral fees and oh well I'll refer this person to you, but you got to give me a kickback. Like
Mhm.
I don't get involved with that. I did decide to do
Mhm.
um, an affiliate situation with my mentorship, but I only emailed like 7 of my close colleagues and I didn't put it out to everybody. So
Yeah.
I did decide to for my upcoming mentorship only because some people had asked me, would you consider or could I?
Mhm.
So I don't have a problem with it. I have just seen, not for me personally, but I've seen other colleagues get into huge falling, like sever ties with one another and have a huge falling out over some stupid affiliate situation where somebody didn't get the payout that they just felt like they deserved. And
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of relationships just really fall apart over
Yeah.
money. It's just stupid. So in my practice, when I refer people out, I
Mhm.
don't ask for a referral fee.
No,
And, Kristin and I have no we have no financial referral relationship between one another. So
we don't. Other than like, anytime somebody's on the podcast. So if you guys want to go listen to some wild
oh
ones
yeah.
out there, go listen to Hope Unlocked. That's part of why the Lord had me to start the podcast was to really feature mostly women, I would say, who've really walked through the fire, whether it's in life or business, ministry, just really sharing raw and real stories. Um, so
I'm
if
so
you need
glad you
a
brought that.
dose of hope, I
So
really
glad
want
you
to
brought
help
that up.
point people to other people. So like Jill was on last year. Others have been on. It's just another way to cut through the noise of social media, right?
I'm so glad you brought up your podcast. I did want to highlight that because you are so raw and real, and you are such a great interviewer that it's like I listen to very few podcasts, very, very few, and yours is like
Oh,
so, so good. So I'll put links to all this stuff in the follow-up email with the recording link for everyone who couldn't make it live tonight. But I just want to say thank you and God bless everybody. And do you have any closing words?
no, I would say, on the health side of things, reach out to Jill. Like it's a beautiful, she's amazing. She's been, oh, and your cookbook is amazing. Tell them about your cookbook for those of my friends who are on here who have never heard of
So
it.
thank you. I have a best-selling cookbook that got published in 2017. So it's called The Essential Thyroid Cookbook, over 100 nourishing recipes for thriving with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. Talk about a mouthful.
Yeah.
And it took us 5 years to get that thing done. I mean, it's self-published, so that's one of the reasons why like it took so long. But my co-author and I had a lot of personal ups and downs during that journey. So we were working on it in fits and starts, and she was working on it when I wasn't, and vice versa. So finally, we got it done and self-published. And yeah, it was a bestseller in 5 categories on the pub date because we had so many pre-orders, and it's continued to do well. And I am just
Yeah.
more importantly is that so many people have learned so much from it because it really is a thyroid health book
Yeah.
within a cookbook. So the first third of the book is like a little mini down and dirty thyroid health education book. So it's not just recipes. There's over 100 recipes, but it is a thyroid and like immune support
Yes.
educational book as well as a cookbook. So
Yeah. I had never seen anything like it because I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's after my oldest was born. And I'm since off, medications and everything for the last over 5 years. But it was so helpful back then because I'm a researcher too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's got it all in here. It's food, recipes, like bring it to me. Yes. But again, like prolific writer. So if you guys want to go check out her book too. I love sharing things. Like I'm like, let's keep sharing what you've got too.
Thank
It's
you.
so interesting. It's so I'm not gonna say how do I say this? I'm usually the one interviewing people, so I'm not used so I appreciate this today.
And I don't really feel like it's been an interview. It's been more
Right.
of
But you know what I'm saying?
a conversation. Yeah, I do know what you mean. I'm hosting you.
I know. Yeah. So
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We can wrap up. I appreciate everyone who's here live. And
yeah.
anyone who's listening to the recording, thank you for taking the time. And yeah, this has been wonderful. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
All right. If anybody has any questions for either of us, just feel free to reach out and we'd love
Yeah,
to help.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
I'll put all the contact information and everything in the follow-up email.
Okay. Sounds good.
All
Bye.
right. Good night, everybody.